Iowa State wasn't super active in the portal right away, but they sure are now. What will Iowa State look like next year on the football field? We're talking about it today on Locked On Cyclones.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to you for being here every single day and making this your first watch or listen of the day. I appreciate it more than you know. Wherever you're watching or listening, be sure to subscribe so we can prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. Today, we're talking about the portal. Obviously, we're going to dive into the additions that Iowa State has made first and how I think they're going to make a massive impact on the team. And then in the second segment, we'll talk about the guys that are on their way out at this current moment. And then finally, in the third segment, we've got some feel-good news, kind of round things out with a bow on top. Brock Purdy, what is he saying about Iowa State? And what is he causing others to say about Iowa State? Stick around to hear that because that's an exciting conversation. But before we get to all of that, this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. First off, I'd like to say quick shout out to Joe for this shirt. New shirt, really cool. If you're not watching on YouTube, you can find obviously this podcast there. Also, quick shout out to the podcast listeners because I feel like they don't get enough love. Let's dive into it. Portal in first. Iowa State making a big addition, in my opinion. Not super active in the portal. I feel like more of the news for Iowa State portal has been rumors than anything, obviously, with one guy in particular. But Iowa State adds 6'2", 290-pound offensive lineman from Wisconsin, Derek Jensen. 4 years of eligibility remaining for Mr. Johnson. I do think this is actually a pretty big addition, just for a couple of reasons. The first being the loss of the Helton twins. I don't think anybody really saw the loss of the Helton twins coming, especially after comments that were made in pressers when it was like, all right, well, these dudes kind of feel like an integral part of the team, obviously making noise in this spring period. And then all of a sudden portal opens and boom, all of a sudden they are out the door. I don't really know even where they went or if they have gone anywhere. I'm more focused on Iowa State at this point, and I thought this is a hole that Iowa State kind of needs to fill. And the first move Iowa State made was the addition of Austin Barrett from Indiana, obviously a name that we have talked about. And then, there is a long list of offensive linemen on the roster right now for Iowa State. And obviously, well, I shouldn't say obviously because I haven't alluded to this yet, but I am alluding to it now. We'll talk about this more coming up. But the offensive line is kind of a position that is up in the air a little bit right now. Who's going to play what even seems to be in question. The addition of Derek Jensen, 6'2", 290 pounds, a little maybe tiny undersized at 6'2", maybe, but 290, not too small, obviously can make that work. 4-star out of high school. I mean, we're getting a dog from this Wisconsin team. I like this a lot. If we can utilize not only Austin Barrett, but Derek Jensen in the best way possible, I think that this team can make a big jump in the run game and in the pass game. What do I mean by that? Well, we all know the offensive line is a kind of a unit-oriented group. It's not so much about the best 5 guys out there. Obviously, you're going to be slightly better when you have better guys on the field. If you have 5 guys that gel really well that are kind of ranked 1-star, and you have 5 guys that gel really well that are ranked 5-star, the 5 stars are going to perform better. That's a given. But if you've got 5 3-star guys who gel really well together and 5 5-star guys who just got out there on the field, I'd almost take the 3 stars. I don't even think that's too crazy. That's just how the offensive line works. Communication, understanding of who's going to be where and when is how this whole thing goes down. Now, does Iowa State get so crazy as to be able to wheel out multiple different offensive line units, a run or a pass offensive line? I don't think so. That's of course, it's a dead giveaway if you wheel out unit A and then the other team's like, all right, well, put in the run stopping package. Like, we're not going to get that wild with this whole situation here. But I do think with added depth at the offensive line position, not only do you semi-injury prevent yourself from that situation down the line, kind of like, I mean, not that it was avoidable last year just with how many injuries there were, but if one or two guys goes down, I think adding a few guys is going to help. And I don't hope anybody gets hurt. I want to make that very clear right now. It's just that football in its nature is an extremely um, physical sport. I mean, it's a hard hitting sport, and things happen. Things happen very quickly. So I hope everybody stays completely healthy all year and makes $20 billion. Okay, and I will still sit here behind this microphone at bare minimum just so they can make all that money. Like, that's how I feel about this. But I think at the end of the day, you have to realize there are going to be some people, some players that are potentially going to be injured. I feel like even just saying that, like, I can feel my skin crawl. I don't love that. But also, adding Derek Johnson, adding Austin Barrett on top of the guys in the room right now that have been talked about as standouts. I think this is a great addition for Iowa State. Obviously, the skill level we've seen from Jensen. Not, I think I said Johnson earlier. It's Jensen, Derek Jensen. Notable 4 stars, obviously. And Wisconsin grabbed him. I thought right away that it was Nebraska, and I was like, oh my goodness, Iowa State is just destroying the state of Nebraska right now. Took the comments personally, I guess, just grab one of their line, but no, it was Wisconsin. Let's not get too wild here. Nonetheless, 2 red and white schools in IU and Wisconsin. So I don't know, is that worth noting? Potentially, who knows? Yeah, really doesn't get too much deeper than this. We haven't seen a ton of Jensen. I mean, if you want to go back to his high school tape, you can. But nonetheless, with 4 years of eligibility remaining, I think there's a great potential for kind of building and making this a next level player a few years down the line. I am going to allude to something that is said later in the episode, but Iowa State grabbing kind of those 3-star guys and then making them into legitimate dogs is our thing. And so if you can grab a guy who's a 4-star early on in his career, maybe he's not going to make a ton of difference right away. Maybe he will. Hopefully he will. But maybe he won't. And so in 2-3 years, granted, the transfer portal is what it is, but maybe he can turn into an all, American lineman, whatever position he ends up playing, because there's the potential for them to move around as well. So great pickup here. Great pickup. I think this is where the focus should be. This is obviously where the offense runs through. You know this. I know this. I'm not going to elaborate on this too much. But it's, realistically the unit that makes the world go around. What makes the offensive or the the offensive train go, but more so what I was going to say is like the run game. That's where it kind of blossoms through the pass game, giving Rocco the time to make the reads that we've talked so much about now without Higgins and Knoll. Can he make the read from 1 to 2 to 3? Well, does he have half a second before he's under pressure, or does he have upwards of 3 seconds? Like, that's the offensive line in a nutshell. That's common knowledge. So putting some emphasis on that, I don't hate. And I don't think that this is a bad pickup by any means. Yes, slightly undersized at 6'2", which is insane because I think 6 foot, 6'1" with my new shoes. But 6'2", like, that's tall to me, even to me. And I'm 6'1" or 6. I go with 6 foot. 6'2" tall to me. I got to look up, and then that's undersized. Holy moly. Went on a bit of a tangent there, but that's just how I feel about the whole height. Like I think we said 6'5" was undersized for basketball. Now I'm really getting off the rails. So we got to bring it back here, and we're going to talk about the guys the guys that are leaving in the portal and how I think Iowa State will be just fine. Actually, could be good news, like I kind of mentioned earlier on this podcast. We're talking about it coming up right after this. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever as well. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. So the portal activity feels like it's at an all-time high. We're talking about it here at Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We talked about Derek Jensen on his way in to Iowa State, how I think this is a great, obviously, target for the Cyclones and could make a big difference. But now let's talk about a few guys on the way out. By my count, I have 3 guys since the last time that you and I spoke that are on the way out. Drew Doyle, Blaine Sandquist, and George Nas is what I'm going to go with. Long snapper and 2 offensive linemen. So the long snapper one, interesting. We've got 2 redshirt freshmen on this list. Drew Doyle hitting the portal as a long snapper. I personally am so tied to the long snappers. Okay. And it's because I was a long snapper, believe it or not. Not the size for it, no. But in two-way football, kind of anything goes. Quick story time. How did I become a long snapper? Threw a guy a slant route from the long snapping position, immediate. You are going to be the long snapper. Shouldn't have done that, but it was kind of my thing. And so when I decided to come to Iowa State and I was like, hey, could I snap? Could I not? You become invested in who's the long snapper very quickly. And unfortunately, it just wasn't in my cards. That is what it is. Now I'm here behind the microphone. Everything happens for a reason. Drew Doyle on his way out is, in the grand scheme of things, you've got 3 long snappers on the roster right now. Drew Clausen, Jacob Lifgood. I apologize, Jacob. That is the hardest name I've ever had to pronounce. I think maybe ever. Lyftogt. Liftogt. And then Drew Doyle, obviously, who is now in the portal as a redshirt freshman. Plenty of opportunity to go out there and see what is available. Where can you get some snaps? Where can you get some tape on there and really start to develop that highlight reel, because it is so hard to do. And if you're going to sit behind, you're a third on the depth chart right now. It's going to be really, really tough to do. I don't hate that move by Doyle for him. I think that makes complete sense. Obviously, now you're down a long snapper. It would take a lot to have to get to the 3rd string long snapper. I think that's fine. Let's move on. We've got 2 offensive linemen in the portal. Okay. Redshirt freshman, a redshirt sophomore. I'm not going to dive too much into each one. I wish them the best. A lot of career left. I wish you'd do it at compete at Iowa State during those years, but that's not the way they're going to go, and that's completely fine. I think, though, that this is the same thing as the linebacker situation. I think this is a good thing. I think this is we're starting to see, like, okay, there is a level of like maybe a pecking order, and there are guys that know there are clear starters or guys who are above them by a margin. And all right, it's probably best for me to hit the portal, get more snaps elsewhere. I don't know exactly why the decisions were made for each individual player, and I am not going to even speculate on that. Well, I guess I'm speculating. I shouldn't say that. I am not going to say with definitive, concise words why anyone is in the portal. I'm just speculating. So I am actually speculating. Just make that clear. that this is why. I think you're going to see, and potentially this could be something as we move forward, just with spring ball in general, like with guys hitting the portal. Um, you know, you don't hit the portal if you think you're going to start, probably, unless there's a money situation going on. And who knows what that'll look like in a few years anyway. So if guys are moving around, it's probably indicative of that unit starting to iron itself out, which is good because I think this offensive line unit, especially with the Helton twins on the way out and now with Derek Jensen on the way in, like there's just a lot of question marks. Where's Brendan Black going to end up? Obviously, other names we've talked about. There's a huge list here, and anybody could be anywhere. And it's like we've got guys changing positions, and who knows what's going to look like what. And this, I think, to me, this I'm looking at as a good sign. Now, both relatively young, obviously, 3 and 4 years of eligibility remaining by my count. And so maybe they just want to go get a fresh start, try to build some snaps, build some rapport with a new program. I get it. That's fine. But also, I wonder if it's like, all right, that offensive line unit, like, especially with Jensen on the way in, where we're at with the guys that we've seen in practice, what we're looking at, that's, it's probably in my best interest to look somewhere else. As a Cyclone fan, you hate to see him go, but if that's the conclusion you're going to draw, it's a good thing. It really is. And this is the exact same conversation we had in the first segment, so I'm not going to repeat it. But like, the offense runs through the offensive line. That's what happens. Unless I guess you're running a sweep, then they're running around the offensive line. It's all tied together. It's all coordinated with those 5 guys up front, unless you got maybe a tight end in there or some weird set. You're just looking at how is a play related to these guys. Obviously, the center has to move the ball right away. Integral part of an offensive unit of a football team. Like I said in the first segment, though, that is just common knowledge. So I apologize. Honestly, I'm sorry I even said that, because that's almost like mean. I know you know that. Anyways, at the end of the day, I do think that these additions, or the addition of Derek Jensen and then these departures of Sandquist and Nas, are going to be long-term good. I wonder what, Sandquist will become, what he could have become as an Iowa State Cyclone. Maybe we'll never know. Maybe he'll transfer back. Same thing for George, standing at 6'4", 295. That's a big dude. These are big boys out here on the offensive line. Just looking at the numbers here, I am actually noticing that 6'2" Derek Jensen is going to be the shortest one. The next shortest at 6'3" is Easton Elledge. That's wild. Those are some big dudes. And so, nonetheless, hate to see him go. The Drew Doyle one, interesting. Obviously, at the long snapper position. That's just kind of how it goes. Feels like a bit of a high turnover position for Iowa State. And at third string, like, go get your snaps, go get your tape up. I don't hate that play at all. We'll be sad to see you go. I wish once a Cyclone, always a Cyclone, loyal forever true. But also, I understand the play there. And the offensive lineman, same exact sentiment. But also, to me, that indicates a little bit more so that, like, we might have something figured out on the offensive line just to tie that all up. Before we move into now, don't go anywhere. We're talking Brock Purdy. Ladies and gentlemen, hold on to your hats. It's that time of the day. Brock Purdy coming up right after this. So the NFL draft is coming up, believe it or not. And Iowa State got a fair amount of dudes in the draft. Yes, we have talked about it before. And, well, I wish we talk about it more, but we probably won't, unfortunately, because this is Locked On Cyclones, not Locked On NFL Cyclones. I don't know even what that would be nonetheless. You're here with Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, the current Cyclones. But I think this is important to current and upcoming Cyclones. The way Purdy speaks about the Cyclones in the draft, very obviously glowing, of course. I mean, former Cyclone, going to say good things about the Cyclones. But he's also influencing other people and their views on the Cyclones. Let's first talk about what Purdy said. I don't know if this was some sort of it was content, but it was like maybe an advertisement as well. I don't even know who it was for, to be completely honest. It just felt kind of staged and odd. But nonetheless, when Purdy gets on the mic, you know he's going to spit bars about Iowa State. And so in the car with their Daniel Jeremiah, Brock Purdy was talking about the Iowa State Cyclone wide receivers, Higgins and Knoll. You know him. I know him. We all love him. And he had very high praise for both of them, rightfully so. If you're asking me, I think they could both easily go in the top 15, and those teams would benefit from picking up those players. I that's just how I feel. Now, am I a bit of a homer? Yes, that's going to happen. But look at where you are. Whether you're on podcast or YouTube and you're hitting the subscribe and the like button, the channel you're on, don't be shocked that I said that. Now, the high praise for both kind of, just floating it around, obviously, like the speed for Knoll and the 50-50 catchability for Higgins and the talent on the outside and whatever, right? Just great things to say about them both. But more physical for Higgins, more like his ability in the X or the Z or whatever it might be at that true wideout position, his ability to go up and get those 50-50 balls obviously stands out. For Knoll, yes, we talked about the speed, or he talked about the speed. I mentioned the speed. But the bigger thing that he talked about was like his mental side. And so that's where I kind of want to go here before we dive into the last thing of today's episode. The mental side of the average Iowa State player is notable, is basically what I'm hearing. Allegedly, in the kind of pre-draft or pre-draft workouts, I know it feels like parentheses in a math problem. I totally get it. But like you got to train for this training period in which you're evaluated. So in this pre-draft practice training period, those training periods leading up to it, I guess allegedly Knoll was early by an hour and a half every day. And Purdy wasn't even surprised. He's like, yeah, that's kind of just who he is. Like, he just first in, last out kind of guy. The mentality on that dude is second to none. Insane. And so the impact that he's going to have on those wide receivers that are now in the Iowa State program, obviously Sowell and Xavier Townsend, not so much in that category, unfortunately, but obviously met with Knoll, or I am pretty sure at least Sol did, or Sowell did. But the guys that are remaining, Eli Green, for example, a guy that I keep naming, you pick up on that mentality. That's a very real thing. It's what do they say? It's like you become the people you are around. The 5 closest people to you, you like become that. I mean, you kind of like that wide receiver room, they feed off each other's energy. And so that's a great sign for Iowa State athletics moving forward, because that's how culture is built. It only takes one guy. And as long as somebody snatches on to that idea, it becomes a unit, and then that unit passes it down generation to generation. Kind of the same idea as the monkey and the banana and the showers experiment. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you should go look it up. It's totally fine to look up. I just don't have time to explain it right now. Nonetheless, I think that was a great thing to point out by Purdy of like, and it's also, it makes sense from like almost pitching them to NFL teams standpoint of like, yeah, they're really talented on the field, but also their work ethic and their mentality is it is what it is. And so there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it, no ways around it. That's what Iowa State is going to give you, right? It's not a guy who transferred all around. Maybe that will become more common, but for the most part, I'd say right now it's guys that are like homegrown, stuck around, developed, got this sense of kind of leadership, at least in some capacity, this sense of work ethic, and then they go to the upper level, to the pro league, the NFL. And that's where it kind of shines through. Even if they weren't necessarily the greatest college football player ever, they have this foundation. And so all of that to say, it feels like a lot of stepping stones to get to the koi pond, and you look at the fish and they're all telling you this is great for recruiting, right? And how many times have I said that? That's what Iowa State is. It feels like it's perfect for recruits, and we have heard that and we have seen that. But all of that to say, like, that's what Iowa State produces is the mentality. Yes, the physical side for sure. Unbelievable facilities. I've toured them myself. But the mental side is so much harder to really nail down. And so for Purdy to point that out about one of the greatest wide receivers on Iowa State's roster last year, and in my opinion, in a long time as well, obviously a lot of great wide receivers come through Iowa State. I'm not belittling anyone, just a very good wide receiver and Noel, one of my favorites, points out the fact that, like, that's the thing that Iowa State has. And if you want to kind of be around that, Iowa State's a place to go. Check that out. Now, Purdy up for contract, very large contract. Don't know what it'll be for sure. But because it's such a large contract, it's reasonable to assume that he has a say in the organization to some level. There was some conversation around how much say does he have with the 49ers, obviously, and just kind of like you hear about Tom Brady and you hear about maybe Aaron Rodgers, who obviously didn't have as much of a say and was kind of the reason that he was left the Packers. But you get what I'm saying. John Lynch was like, all right, yeah, he does have things. He has some ideas, more so with the pros, but also very high on the Iowa State guys, as I've talked about with that conversation with Daniel Jeremiah. But also, after he said that, John Lynch was like, you kind of know what you're getting with an Iowa State player. Brock has shown us that, and there are some other guys in this draft. Like, now we're getting to the level of real, like, NFL players from Iowa State are obviously going to say very good things about Iowa State players right now. Players in the league from Iowa State, like, that's the brotherhood. That's how it works. Okay, that makes sense. But when you get to the GM level and it's starting to, like, get in the brain of, like, you know what you're getting from an Iowa State guy. Like, that's, we've seen it from Purdy, and we are looking at it with these other guys. Like, that's good news. I like that a lot, because then you're going to hate me when I say this. Recruiting. Like, that's direct. Like, you just, Iowa State, I feel like, gained a lot from that. Now, it's not going to be heard from everybody or by everybody, and not everybody will notice it, because it was just a quick little hitter in a presser, and it wasn't even what the question was about. And so I imagine most people won't see this. But if Iowa State is smart, I think they'll use this with recruits. Like, look, we're starting to get kind of bumped up in national relevance by NFL GMs, right? It's no longer like, you know what you're getting from an Alabama, or honestly, you could go, they usually say, like, you know what you're getting from the SEC, you know what you're getting from the Big Ten and Ohio State and Michigan, and you know what you're getting from, at the time, maybe Texas and Oklahoma before they moved to the SEC. Who's in that Big 12 conversation of, like, you know who you're getting from, or you know what you're getting from who, right? In the Big 12, who would that be? Well, now it's Iowa State. Now, do I love that that's not the right away first thing that comes to mind? No. But the fact that it's being chatted about is very good news, in my opinion. Was this whole segment kind of about Iowa State recruiting got some more noise, a little bit louder from Brock Purdy's comments? Potentially. You take it how you will. I was just excited to see Purdy talking about Iowa State, obviously. Very cool that he stays true and loyal forever true to the Cyclones. And so that's it. That's all I have for you guys. I apologize for that. Until next time, Cyclone fans, hit that subscribe button. Sayonara.